Και να προχωρήσουμε στην πρώτη keynote speaker για σήμερα. Θα γυρίσω αγγλικά για να την υποδεχτώ. Η Gina London is the founder, a CEO of the Language and Leadership Company. She guides global companies and C-level executives to better, in order to how to better connect and engage with their employees, their board members, and themselves. Today, we have the pleasure and honor to have her live in Athens. So, with a very warm applause, let's all please welcome Gina London.
I'm here. Marilena.
How beautiful she is.
Good morning. Kalimera. It is absolutely my privilege to be here with you this morning. As I was flying over from my hometown of Dublin, Ireland, yes, this is an American accent, and yes, my last name is London, but I live in Dublin, so it's very confusing. But as I was flying over, I was thinking about all the incredible places I've had the privilege of going to. And I was writing down all the countries I've been in person. Now with virtual, I've been to a lot more. But today is my first time in Greece, my first time in Athens, number 50 of all the countries I've been to. And people often ask me, oh, what's your favorite country? How do you find Greece? And I say, I find every country one person at a time. And I mean that. And whenever, as Marilena was saying, I work with senior leaders, HR professionals, emerging team employees, it is about that individual. And when I'm coming to the door of a new company, oftentimes I've been invited. Oftentimes the senior leaders or the CEO, I coach a number of CEOs, they are happy to have me. We're going to work together on what I call my ADD principle: awareness, desire, discipline. Raising the awareness of how senior leaders think they're behaving and how they're actually behaving. We all know values are not enough to be written on a wall or in an employee handbook or in a video. Stoking and igniting that desire to be even more engaging, to be more transparent, to be more approachable, and then the hard work, the day-to-day discipline to make it happen. ADD, add. Sometimes, however, when I come to a door, like the door I'm going to talk to you about right now, corporate has brought me to the senior leader in question. And the senior leader is not happy to see me. The senior leader I'm going to talk to you about right now, and of course this is not his real name, Richard, had been told that his productivity numbers were fine, but this was a managing director of a country that global was looking to increase its footprint. So the people numbers for Richard were not so good. So here comes Gina, the consultant, the coach, into this company for the first time. His assistant says, go right on in, his door is open. And as I walk in, ladies and gentlemen, Richard did not get up from behind his desk. He sat there looking at me with the face, you know the face. And I walk in and I said, hi, I'm Gina, it's nice to meet you. And he says, it's fine to meet you, but I don't know why you are here. My number scores don't reflect who I am because you just walked in, you see I have an open door policy. And I said, great. Richard, how many times have you actually walked out of that door and gone around to meet your team members on a Monday morning and asked how their weekend was? And how many times in a senior leadership team meeting do you have your door open, but you're behind your desk and you haven't come to this round table that's in your office to sit with them? And this is an example of why we have an opportunity now when the world is poised. I've seen the videos now. I don't understand a lot of what's being said so far, but I see the videos about what digital change is transforming everything. Employees are hybrid. Employees need more than ever to feel valued. And it is not enough to have Richard and Open Door. You have to have much more. And it is hard to focus on what's needed to be done amidst all of the strategies, all of the things that are pulling on us as senior leaders. And I understand there are HR and MDs and senior leaders in this room. Each of you are that ambassador, that embodiment of what it means to be a purposeful communications leader, to emanate what we are talking about in the handbook and what our values are and our mission statement for our organization. But I know myself, I'm a single mom with a 16-year-old daughter. It is hard to focus sometimes when you've got problems going on in real life, and we all know that we don't have a professional life and a personal life. We just have a life. So how then do we focus? How do we remind ourselves that it is difficult to focus? Well, I know it's early in the morning, and one of the people were telling me, oh, this group is a little quiet, but it's time to get up and do a focus exercise. Yay, everybody off your feet. On your feet, off your seat, on your feet. Do it with that enthusiasm face so I feel good about what we're doing. Okay, with your eyes to me, those of you in the back, it's going to be a little more difficult, but here is what is happening. This focus exercise is asking you to follow what I say and do what I say. So everybody ready? Right hand over your head. Raise your right hand, and now together begin to move that hand clockwise over where it is. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not 11, 10, 9, 8. Continue to move your hand, and now take your thumb and your index finger and make a little circle. And continue as you listen to the sound of my voice. Make that little circle go around over your head. And now as you're listening to the sound of my voice, 1, 2, 3, put that hand right on your chin. Who's on your forehead? Yes! Have a seat. Give yourselves a round of applause. Now, what happens, and please talk about, I imagine those of you in the back were on the forehead, right? Because you didn't see me as well. Those of you who were watching me went right to the forehead, even though I said chin, because you're watching me. And I also know, of course, second language English speakers, this is also maybe a little more difficult, but your English is much better than my Greek. So this is an actual focus exercise from the University of Illinois. And so what does it show us? It shows us that we are so easily distracted. We just simply are. Those of you, I'm a practitioner, I'm not an academic, but those of you who have more academic background, you'll know in neuroscience, we have about 70,000 thoughts that are bombarding us from our heads. Combine that with about 100,000 or more stimuli that is coming from our kids who are texting us when we're at work, our phone that we can't put down, that we need to check some reel or some story because we're addicted, or the emails, which the research shows now are about 65 to 75% more than before lockdown, pandemic, and hybrid working. We are stretched. We are distracted. So it's hard to focus, and yet, because we are the leaders and people are watching us, this is that opportunity to refresh, reboot, refocus on what it means to bring psychological safety into the workplace. Ooh, psychological safety. She said she wasn't an academic. I'm not, but this lady is. Amy Edmondson, those of you who are familiar with her, is a Harvard professor, and back in the 1990s, she was researching medical teams. And her premise was that the medical teams who have the best communication are going to report the fewest mistakes. But interestingly, those of you who know the findings of this study won't be surprised. She was surprised that the teams that demonstrated the best focused, engaging, committed communications actually reported more mistakes because they didn't see them as something to be ashamed of. They saw them as something to learn from. And the patients connected to those teams had the best outcomes, had better outcomes than the teams with communications that resulted in low mistakes being reported, did not indicate the productivity or the efficacy of that team. And that's why she coined the phrase, they have psychological safety. They have safety to express themselves, to feel that they are being valued, that they are being seen, that they are being heard. So look in your own mind right now. Think about your own organization that you represent. Who are those people? You can see them. Some of them you might know really well in smaller organizations, larger organizations, you might know just your direct reports. But imagine the next team meeting, the next weekly update or project update, and you're in a meeting with a senior leader. Maybe you are that senior leader. This is about raising awareness, hopefully stoking that desire. Can you see the quietest person in that room raise their hand to give an opinion? Or not even raise their hand, just voice that opinion. Can you imagine that? And can you imagine that person, that same quiet person, raise that same opinion if it's different or challenging to you or that senior leader? Think about it. These are the real-life practical examples of where we see psychological safety at work. Do you see them take risks? Do you see them hear them? Does the team feel comfortable to make mistakes, share the mistakes, admit the mistakes, all without fear? I'm working with large organizations in Saudi Arabia right now because cultural progress is something that this organization is committed to, and yet the CEO is one of those people that when he is frustrated, he comes out of that open door and yells at everyone. You've seen it. You know this happens. It's going to be a real challenge for me to bring this guy to the idea of how do we multiply and increase the value of the people's worth, because we all know the research means then their productivity is going to be that much better. If you're not going to do it because you're altruistic, do it because their productivity is going to be better. But do be real about what it takes. You can't have a policy that says we support psychological safety in the workplace and imagine a meeting where people do not feel free to share. And the senior leaders do not look like they care, or step over them to dismiss them, or jump in with their own solution. That's why good old Amy Edmondson actually didn't just refer to it as psychological safety. She referred to it, in fact, in her initial report as team psychological safety. And every one of us has a role to play. I get excited about that when I'm talking to organizations when there's senior leaders and junior employees in a room, because these junior employees are the leaders who are going to be working on their career path progression, developing loyalty to this organization, and they need to know that their words matter too, don't they? So each of us then, collectively, we can't look over our shoulder and say, well, that's not for me, that's for this person. No, I'm ops. I'm supply chain. I'm not that people HR land. We're all people, and the one thing I can guarantee is that when AI and virtual reality and machine learning is replacing some parts of our jobs, it cannot until the robots, I'm sorry, was it something I said? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That's our panel, I'm just kidding. The time that the robots are going to replace us as humans, seriously, is not yet. And the more that we can get honest and committed and focused about how we bring ourselves to our team, these are the ways that we are going to keep our humanity, keep our collaboration, keep inspiring young people to join our organization. We all globally talk about talent retention, or talent attraction and retention. This is it. You are the doors. You are the doors. Not the group with Jim Morrison, for those of you who are old enough to know that group, but you are the doors that can be choosing to open, that can be choosing to walk through. And I'm going to take us back now. Why is this picture up? Because, folks, even though I've traveled all around the world, and I'm thrilled to be here in Athens, and I do have a 9:30 a.m. small group tour at the Acropolis booked for tomorrow, this is the town where I grew up. This is literally a picture from 2 years ago when I took my daughter there to have her see it for the first time. The building is the tallest in the entire town, and it's the grain elevator. The town is not just called Farmland because that's the description. It is actually the name of the town, Farmland, Indiana. You can Google it later. There are more cows and pigs and corn stalks than there are people, about 1,200 people over there. And the reason I share this is because who we think about ourselves and the value that we choose to demonstrate to others, it's important to remind us of the things that people describe themselves to themselves. We all right now probably have a list of words that we would describe ourselves to our best friend or a trusted confidant at work. And where these words come from can be a variety of sources. The words that we use to describe ourselves, the words that our team members who are sitting in that meeting room, as I described, are thinking about themselves at that moment. Are we reinforcing them if they're negative? Are we changing them if they're negative? Are we uplifting them and reinforcing them if they're positive? Think about that. We don't know what words are in their heads, do we, until we get to know them. Here's a word that was planted in my head back when I was 8 years old in Farmland, Indiana. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the American Girl Scout tradition of going door to door to sell Girl Scout cookies. You've heard, you've seen it. It's the little girls, 8 years old, usually with their mothers, maybe with a father, go to the neighborhood and they knock on the door. I had a little red wagon full of boxes of cookies, because this is how you raise money to go to Girl Scout camp, which is a rite of passage for a lot of little girls in the States. So I was going to my little door, 8 years old, and then there was the door, once again with the imagery of the door, from the meanest man in our neighborhood. You know there always is one. His name was John Halderman. He was about this tall in my mind, but I was really small. And knocked on the door. He came to the door. I was hoping he wasn't going to come to the door, but he came to the door. And I'm sure, I don't remember how I said it, but something came out that probably was like, I don't know what I'm saying. I was nervous. And he, at that time, was the leader to my little junior employee, my quiet person, my nervous person at that team meeting. And I'll never forget, he looked down at me and with a voice that to me sounded like a booming megaphone, said, I don't know what you're saying, Mumbles. I can't understand a word you're saying. I can't understand you. And I didn't repeat what I was going to say. I burst into tears and I grabbed my wagon. No, I left my wagon and I ran down to the edge of the driveway and my mother went and picked up my wagon. And ladies and gentlemen, for the next 10 years until I graduated from high school and moved away from that neighborhood, every single time I saw Mr. Halderman, he called me Mumbles. Hey, Mumbles. Hey, Mumbles. He's dead now. Not because I killed him, but he's... But imagine you're a little girl who has a dream like I did to become a journalist, to become a reporter, to become, as I ultimately was for 10 years, a White House correspondent in Washington for CNN. But you have an internal voice in your head that says you mumble. These are the things that many of us carry with us like that little red wagon full of cookies today. What are the words that you have had planted in you by someone else? Maybe it's you're a really hard worker by a coach, and that's a good one. Maybe it's, you didn't show up right by a coach, and that's a bad one. I want each of you to interrogate the words that you use to describe yourself right now so that you can either reinforce or root them out. And also be very aware that this is what people are going through all the time in any organization. We are not just a professional life. We are a composite of the things and experiences that we've had since we were 8 years old and even before. I'm not a psychologist, but I work with enough people around the world to know that this theme impacts us even today in our professional life. So, words have power. Words have power. And together, now, a few minutes we have together, let's get real and practical and unpack some of the ways that leaders, all of us, because we're all a leader, if we impact even one other person, which is ourselves, we are therefore a leader. Let's think about the way that we communicate. As I mentioned, I used to work for CNN, then I was asked to do international communication strategy for some campaigns around the world. I helped the first women in Iraq who were running for parliament. So I got to go from telling other people's stories to helping people tell their stories. And that's what I do now in the corporate world today with my company, as Mary Lena said, Language of Leadership. And really it starts with fundamentally reminding ourselves how we are communicating and how we are being received by others all the time. And then the more that we can unpack, identify, and then repack with purpose, that begins to make us hopefully a more value-giving and encouraging leader. So, my fundamental methodology comes down to 3 simple letters because I can't remember anything more than 3, so this is easy for you. Hopefully 2. It is iterative, and that means as you're going through this process with me very quickly, I hope that it will actually modify your approach to the way that you might be communicating up until this point. So, A, I, M, you apply your aim, you take your aim, because we're thinking about audience, intent, message, in this order. Too often people are focused on the information. What's our HR policy? What's our new digital transformation? What's our new whatever it is? Let's focus on the information. You start making slides. Comms team starts making slides. Have we actually considered who's our audience? Not demographics. That's great, that's a start. But what are their hopes, their dreams, and their fears? Not to play on their fears, but to reassure their fears. If you are part of a M&A, merger and acquisition, and your employees are concerned about redundancies, and you start talking about the new chapter, these people aren't with you. I've had CEOs or senior leaders write their agenda for a town meeting, and I say, great, now take that piece of paper and write another agenda from the points of view of the employees. What are they thinking of? What motivates them? What are the pictures in their mind? This might seem obvious or simple, but I guarantee it isn't easy to focus and consistently apply. What are they thinking of? Move that agenda item to the top. Bring them with you. Let them know that you are aware of the elephant in the room. Your intent, A for audience, I for intent. Your intent is not to inform. I does not stand for inform. I stands for, the reason I have my diver is because it is the action you want them to take after you are done speaking. It's not enough to just nod your head, I heard you, and then go do exactly what you were doing before, which happens a lot. And then you have to put in emails to require and follow up and ask for actionables and deliverables. Make your intent very clear. And by the way, if you are doing a team presentation, before you are even speaking, ask around that team, what's your intent? What's your goal? What's your goal? Because that little nuance could make a difference of how you are cohesive or not cohesive when you're presenting to your audience. Know your goal. And only after that you've thought about who they are really, what you want them to do immediately after you're finished speaking. Now we craft a message. A for audience, I for intent, M for message, because too often companies, leaders will say to me, oh, well, they know what the message is. No, they don't, because remember how distracted they are? They're not listening the whole time. As much as I love your lovely faces, I also know you're thinking about, God, how much longer is she going to go on? When's the coffee break? I have other things going on. I need to make that call. We are all constantly listening to our own radio station of what is in it for me. WIFM, call letters from an older time. What's in it for me? Your message then needs to be standalone, clear, brief, emotional. Don't have it be the entire presentation. What's the one takeaway you want them to do? Craft it as a what and add an aspirational why. It's going to improve their life, improve their career. Because if it's just a directive, it's a mandate. We all have to wear these uniforms that are pink now because of Barbie. I don't know. Why is going to get them around you and get them to get excited about it. We all know about leadership by right and demand. This is leadership by reward and relationship. And there's a difference. So we have our strategy, audience, intent, message. Now let's quickly play around with this mechanism of us. Because remember, we are not robots, we are humans. So let's take more control of the human that we bring to every situation, because people are taking cues and signals from us all the time. This is one of my fundamental principles. You are never not communicating. You are always communicating either by default or by design. And by design does not mean that you are fake. It means you are genuinely focused on adding value and caring for the other people. So, how do we come across when we're communicating? Let's take more ownership of it by understanding those three main ways. And the reason I have that stool is because if you are only focused on words, which most businesses and business professionals do focus mostly on the words, you are missing the opportunity to connect with the voice, out on this microphone, and the body. But let's come together and agree that, as I said, words matter. Here comes Giannis. Yay! Words matter, and let's think about it for a second. We talked about corporate speak. We talked about the way that town meetings and team meetings, so how do I turn this off? And you're going to turn it off there. And I'm going to use this, and okay, testing. Back to the CNN days, Gina London reporting live. When my daughter, who is 16, as I mentioned, says, "Don't use your CNN voice, Mom." Boo. Nobody keeps you humble like your kids. When we think about words, many of you in your organizations might have a protocol by design of the words that you tend to use, or you might have one that has happened over default, right? There is an opportunity to think about the lexicon that you use and take more ownership of that. I won't belabor it. We can do an entire workshop on word usages and handbooks around best practices for warming up language while still staying professional and compliant in many organizations where that legal regulations is part of your organizations. But let's think now in feedback. Remember how we're talking about psychological safety and how we make sure that that is something that we are taking ownership of. If you have had someone make the mistake, and as a leader, you say this, what are we framing it as? A negative. Wrong. How did you mess up? Oh, that was a failure. Oh, well, that was horrible. You've heard these things. Well, that didn't go great. Sarcasm. I love sarcasm. It's such a positive way to make people feel valued, isn't it? No. What if you said this? What could you do better? Now, I think that's a plus. But what if you said this? Hey, what did you learn? It's very open. I'm seeing some nods. Thank you. Wonderful nods. What this is telling us is that there are options that require preparation. I have had clients say, I'm too busy to learn all these fancy framing techniques. I just need to be direct and get the job fixed. But we are in this for the leadership long game of identifying the genius in everyone and encouraging them around that and planting words of positivity that make them feel valued, that help them be seen, that make them feel that they are an actual part of a team, and then that increases our productivity. So these techniques of considering our words beforehand and coming up with a list of a few that you might use is not something that takes too much time. What's at stake if you don't take the time? Aim for the heart. People are human. People want to be valued. Now, paralinguistics, that was one leg of the stool, words. Paralinguistics is simply a fancy name for using your voice like the instrument that it is. And I'm loving the nods here, by the way, thank you. When we think about our professional voice, especially now in hybrid working, if you're doing virtual meetings, the research is very clear. If you don't turn your camera on, obviously your voice is the sense that they are needing the most. But even if your camera is on and it's about this big on a little screen, your voice is what is bringing their people with you. And if you are your senior leader, sounds like this, and we are talking about the projections for the second quarter, and isn't this exciting? I am happy to be delivering this to you today. And oh, I'm looking down at a paper, and you can see me reading it, and it is soul-sucking. If it sounds boring to you, it is boring to them. It does not mean that you have to become a cheerleader if you are not someone who has extrovert tendencies, which I might have just a little. It does mean, however, that you can bring energy. You can speak from the heart. Remember, we talked about the heart. You can consider your pitch. This is very serious. This is more exciting. See what happens? Now I'm going to be very intimate and tell you something in confidence. That's a volume low. Now I'm really enthusiastic because we met all of our projections and exceeded them, and you're all getting bonuses. Now my volume is more. Our tone, our emphasis, play around with the voice that you have. Most of you, if you're in a place where you're very comfortable, like a sports match or some performance that you love, your enthusiasm in your voice is very natural. Why we dial it back when we're in a business setting, I do not know. So please, this is your opportunity right now to give yourself the privilege. Gina said I could try it. Try today. Put yourself on your camera. Find me over on LinkedIn or wherever you get your social media. Send me a clip of yourself speaking with enthusiasm. I promise you right now, I will give you my notes on how you do and encourage you around it. Now, final thing in our area of delivery, we've talked about our preparation strategy. We've talked about our words to power them up and to make them purposeful and to make them positive. We've talked about taking more control of our voice. And by the way, speaking about microphones, if you are mic'd, do not rely on that. Still bring your energy. Do not depend on amplification. That's a freebie for you. Your body language right now, without moving your bodies, just look at your faces over to each other. Look at the other people in your table. Look at the body language they are bringing. Are some people slouching down? Oh my God, is it ever gonna? Are people leaning in? This is a way that we all read each other, but few of us take ownership on how we deliver it. I had a senior leader from Egypt who was covering for a big pharmaceutical company, the region of Southeastern Europe. And he said to me, I have a very serious face. And I said, no, actually, George, you have the male version of resting bitch face. You don't look serious, you look mean. He says, really? But largely, many people are unaware, and you can take control. A slight smile combined with a head nod does not make you a bobblehead. It can make you appear to be interested, and by the way, the psychology around this is when you change your own body language, it doesn't just signal it out to others, it signals it to yourself. So if you're losing interest, if you're not happy to be there, try adding a slight smile, sit up, lean in about 30 degrees in your chair, and put your hands up on the table. This is also more of an engaged gesture posture. And watch not only how others respond to you, but how you begin to feel yourself. We can take more control. We can change our posture and our facial expressions. You don't have to go crazy like this lady, but you can add a little more enthusiasm and interest because we as people are reading that signal, and that's going to encourage us to go or makes us shut down. Now, one big bonus for everybody, when you think about, okay, how do I do some of this focusing? Usually I do this with not one hand holding a microphone, but this is actually a disruptive focus tool for all of you to take out of here with you forever. And I'm excited to share this with you. What happens is when you start to feel your face drop, or you start to feel your tendency to interrupt or provide a solution, remember, we are communicators by design. What you can do or you're feeling nervous because you need to present and you don't like this feeling. One thing that you can do, and I have had this ratified by my friend Wendy Suzuki, who is the head of neuroscience for New York University. This is not just a placebo, it actually works. Our emotional response is back here in the amygdala of our brain, the fear center of our brain, which is usually reactive. When we do this technique, as I'll show you in a moment, that moves our thoughts and our behaviors to the prefrontal cortex, which is more of our logical thinking. So here's what it is, simply this. Bear with me, I'm going to go very loud. Take your thumb and your palm like this. Press your thumb into your palm. Turn your hand around. So if you're in public, nobody needs to see this. You could be standing on a stage. You could be getting questions from a team leader that you're not expecting. You could be getting some sort of a question from an employee that you didn't anticipate. You could be frustrated about something. You could be dealing with that 16-year-old teenager I keep talking about. But this, when you press, will remind you, keep my face engaged, speak more slowly, nod my head, think about the words that I've constructed to bring my feedback session around in a positive way. That technique will help you move from react to respond. I hope that helps. Okay, we're in the home stretch, folks. This opportunity is not about changing who each of you are. Each of you right now is a masterpiece. Your self-development and the self-development among your team members that I'm sure you're going to be talking to when you go back after this wonderful symposium, they are able to live in harmony with your self-acceptance. Your self-acceptance and your self-development live in harmony. So for me, one thing I had to develop, remember I came from farmland, Indiana. The way that I said the nation's capital growing up all the way until I went to college was like you see right there, Washington. I did not wash my clothes in farmland, Indiana. I washed them. That would not make me very understandable as I was reporting live from CNN in the White House, and it certainly would not make me very understandable when I am speaking to wonderful Greek people here in Athens in the Intercontinental Hotel. We can develop ourselves. We can make slight modifications. I am sure if Mr. Halderman could see me now, he would not call me Mumbles. Or if he did, never mind. It has been my real privilege to be from CNN to countries all around the world, as I mentioned, to be able to help one by one, team by team, leader by leader, people get excited about where they can develop themselves and how they can bring people along with them. These fundamental ideas that change equals growth is a change in mindset for a lot of people. Plastering psychological safety in the workplace is not enough to create an environment that people feel valued and comfortable to challenge and raise opinions. It is an opportunity, though, for growth. Small changes make a difference. The relationships that we have are the ones that we take action and make choices to nurture. Don't wait for the first person to make the move. You can make changes that make real happening, real positive results. So one last thing I want us to try together is this thing that we're doing now again. I'm so happy that we're back to handshaking. Those of you who feel comfortable at your table, if you don't, that's fine. I want to talk to you about what giving a global standard business professional style handshake is. Many countries and places where I go, people have not actually ever given this any thought. So one of the first impressions that we make when we're meeting someone is that handshake. Have you ever received this dead fish? You might keep your face pleasant, but your mind is just screaming, ew, ugh. They don't even know they're doing it because they haven't been taught. Just like these global standards of how we communicate more purposefully, they are teachable. They're not somebody's born with it. Why would they be? So in fact, the first purposeful handshake I got, and I've now teach this and we're going to do it now, is the idea that it's not about the arm, it's about the clasp. So you are, once again, you are clasping the other person's hand. Your fingers of your hand are actually having contact on the back of their hand. This squeeze here is what's important. Do you see this? It's not something with your this, and it's not the dead fish, and don't do anything weird with your finger here. Because I will tell you, this first handshake that I received that was meaningful, like this, was when I was in the White House as a young reporter with then President Clinton. That's all he taught me, though, I promise. So, 1, 2, 3, go ahead and give a handshake to someone at your table with that idea. Go ahead. You can critique each other. You can encourage each other. This is a way to show value. Excellent. Excellent. Give yourselves a round of applause. Well done. Wonderful leaders. This is the final couple of slides and the end of my time up here on this stage, but I hope it is not the end of my time with you. Please continue to have conversations about how you are the leaders. You make the choice. You can have the first play in what I call the feedback loops of life. Our lives really are nothing more than a series of feedback loops. And I don't mean to dehumanize this, but I want us to get serious about it. How we choose to show up, how we choose to have our body language, how we choose to greet someone, how we choose to shake hands, how we choose to come from behind our desk or out of our office. Asking people how their weekend was is not fake. It is cultivating your curiosity. And then how they respond will largely reinforce your choice to be more caring, to listen more actively, to provide a place of psychological safety through responsiveness, not reactiveness. And then they'll respond, and then you'll respond, and they'll respond, and on we go. And you, each of you, will be that role modeling, open door, walking through it leader that other employees will see. Because remember, they are watching you even when you're not speaking. They are reading your body language. They are seeing if your phone is up. They are seeing if you are looking at them in the eye. You are that open door. And I'm happy to say, Richard, remember Richard, I had the privilege of talking to him about his 5-year-old daughter and putting him on camera while he lit up talking about her preschool that she was going to. And then I put him on camera again and I said, bring me that energy about Jessica to your employees. And that was the moment that the light bulb went off in Richard. And he began initially, not because he wanted to, but because he saw that it was going to get the changed feedback loops. He changed his actions. The feedback loop responses changed. The numbers changed on his people scores. Corporate was happy. Productivity went up. And I'm delighted to say that he is today one of my favorite all-time clients. Your actions change your thoughts. Not your thoughts change your actions. I hope you are excited that these seemingly small ideas can have really big results. And if you don't think so, the reason I have that little insect is I want you to think about the last time you were on holiday in a room with a mosquito overnight. Small things can make big differences, folks. People are watching. They are hungry. They want to be valued. And each of you is a leader that can bring that value to them. Eforisto. Sure, of course. I'm happy to stand here and talk to you all day. One question. I think there might be roving guests.
Thanks, Eva.
What's your first name?
Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
Easy to remember for you, eh?
Yes.
Peggy. So thank you very much for the speech, Gina, and thanks for being with us today. And I hope that you have a great day today in Athens, because the weather is fantastic. So one question about Richard. How often do you meet this type of male or female? And which are the common characteristics of this
Peggy's question was, how often did I meet Richard? Our particular engagement initially was every other week, over 3 months for an hour. Plus, he had, of course, open access to me on my phone, and he was required to send me daily updates. Because, like a piano teacher, I don't want to show up at the end of 1 week and think that you only worked the hour before my lesson. I want to know that you were trying these things on and on. It's muscle memory. Now, we ended up working together for 6 months because he signed up again, but he signed up this time and paid out of his budget instead of out of the global corporate L&D budget, which is actually a positive that I was proud of. But it depends on the team, it depends on the organization. Sometimes I do full-scale consultations and I bring in a lot of other coaches, but usually when I'm working with a senior leader, minimum 6 dedicated sessions plus the overall connectiveness every day over 3 months. Okay, if you have other questions, I'll be here. I'm not going to the Acropolis until tomorrow. Thank you.